It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Folks, so we do these things called Impression of the Session, and we're going to continue those segments right now. Please welcome back to the program. We've got State Representative Grant Hodges is with us. He represents District 96. Grant, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Paul. Well, I'm a little worried I'm going to get turned into a meme, but other than that, I'm doing well and good to be back on with you.
Absolutely. It's always great to have you on, and let's just start, generally, let's give you the floor. State Representative Grant Hodges, what was your impression of the session in 2019?
Well, I appreciate you having me on to talk about the session. Really my feeling is after my 3 sessions, unfortunately, I think this was probably my least favorite one. I was a little bit disappointed with the session overall, and the reason being, when I kind of looked back and thought, what were some of the big conservative wins of the session? I didn't see a lot there. We didn't get anything meaningful done really on school choice, and I'm on the education committee, so that's something I've watched 3 sessions in a row be defeated. I didn't see anything on tort reform, really nothing significant on Medicaid reform, nothing on ethics reform, which was really disappointing. I had a bill that I really wanted to pass with Senator Johnson for the pension issue for corrupt officials. Sort of a big picture landscape. I felt like taxes and spending went up. Didn't see a lot of efforts there to go in the opposite direction. And then, of course, there were a few bills that I felt were good that didn't pass, like Representative Payton's car tax bill or Representative Gonzalez's telemedicine bill. So, big picture, I was a little bit disappointed with this session. It wasn't all bad, of course, but we didn't go nearly far enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, it seems like on the tax side of things, we had a situation where it seems like leadership was convinced that changing the structure of the tax system was better than letting the people keep more of their money. And what I mean by that is, feel free to answer this. You think when it's all said and done, the people of Arkansas are going to be paying more money to the government than they were before the 92nd General Assembly?
Yes, I do. And I would be interested to have someone give me the opposite case. But from my perspective, it definitely seems like taxes at the end of the day will be going up, certainly because, as you talked about already, a lot of these tax increases take effect soon this year, and a lot of our tax cuts take effect in the future. Hopefully they'll take effect in the future. But when you look at it with the highway tax vote, the highway taxes we just implemented, the online sales tax, the tobacco tax, and what we did with the cell phone fees. At the end of the day, I just don't see how, even with the income taxes that we've passed the last 3 sessions, I'm afraid that your average Arkansan is going to be paying more, and I'm worried that they're going to be really disappointed and feel disenfranchised, disencouraged, because the messaging is, we have this Republican supermajority, taxes are being cut, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at their bank accounts at the end of the year and wondering why they're not seeing it.
Yeah. You mentioned, we have done the income tax. The governor and the leadership, I think, did a really good job getting the income tax cut, moving that top rate eventually from 6.9 to 5.9. That's great. And but then they come right back. And not only do they take that $95 million cut to the government back by the gas tax increase, which you voted against, they also, with the other vote, with the to continue the levy on the half-cent sales tax, which you voted against as well, State Representative Hodges. With those 2 votes, not only did you wipe away the $95 million tax cut, but you wiped away all of the previous income taxes, for the last 3 sessions, and then some, because we're talking about $400 million.
That's right. Yeah, that's a big reason why I voted against the highway tax bill. And I think people just can't afford it. And we're already a high tax state. We already have the highest income tax in the region. We have, I think, the second highest sales tax in the country after Tennessee, which has no income tax. So I don't think enough is being done. And there's this mentality in Little Rock, and I know you've seen it, and other legislators have mentioned it, that anytime we do a tax cut, it has to be paired with a tax increase. We've just seen that time and time again. Anytime we have a tax cut proposal, it's always tied to, well, how are you going to increase revenue elsewhere to offset this? And meanwhile, tax collections keep going up and up and up. I think we had a record April as far as tax collections to the state. But you're right, I did vote against the highway tax, and I hope that the voters will do that with the extension vote in 2020. They were told it would be a 10-year program, and now, of course, we're trying to make that permanent. It's I think I would have loved to have seen more debate on those highway votes. I know Representative Mayberry had a bill that would have not raised taxes but still given us funding for highways. I know there were other proposals out there. I know Representative Penzo and Representative Lundstrom had ideas, but really we weren't given the opportunity to really debate those or hear those. It was just sort of my way or the highway.
I like it.
Sorry.
No. I really appreciate it. So tell me, if you don't mind, like the last one of the last, and there's a ton of bills that you guys voted on, and I have been focusing on these three: the gas tax, the half-cent sales tax, and then the internet tax. Now, so tell me, this was a tough one because the internet tax was paired with these corporate tax cuts eventually. Mm-hmm. So what was your thinking on that, State Representative Hodges?
Yeah, it was tough, and of course, so I did think the bill did a lot of really good things on the corporate side, so I liked that a lot. Now, of course, we did have the online sales tax tied into it, and like I was just talking about, that's how a lot of these bills get to us on the floor, and I'm not a member of the Revenue and Tax Committee, so I really only have my floor vote on these things, and we keep seeing it every session. I think it was last session we had the veterans income tax cut tied with the increase on a bunch of other taxes, and so we kind of get put in these very tough to win positions. But on the online sales tax, I felt comfortable enough at this point with the Supreme Court having ruled on that issue, and I have heard a lot back in my district and in Northwest Arkansas, not just from chamber types who are always kind of in favor of these kind of things, but really from business owners in Northwest Arkansas who are telling me, I've got customers that come in and they look at my clothes, they look at jewelry, they look at my furniture, and then they try it out, and then they leave and go buy it online. And so I'd heard enough of that I felt like with sales moving increasingly online, that we needed to do something in regards to the sales tax between retail and online.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely understand those arguments. And that would have to be really frustrating if you're a business owner and people are coming in there to, touch and feel, and then it's like, okay, bye. And we go buy it online. Mm-hmm. We're talking with State Representative Grant Hodges. He represents District 96. Can you remind us, Grant, real quick, District 96 is where?
Yep, District 96 is East Benton County, so I get Rogers, Lowell, Avoca, Garfield, Gateway. It's mostly the Beaver Lake area, downtown Rogers, and I live in Rogers.
Okay, so I thought one of the best moments, when I say best, just you did such a good job when the Arkansas Works ruling came down that the Arkansas Works was basically illegal, or the work requirements were considered illegal by the judge. This is being challenged. Then you guys were asked to vote for the budget, and you went down and gave a really good speech, just basically about what you guys had been told in the past. And I mean, just go ahead and and feel free to elaborate on that moment in the session when the ruling came down.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. After the court decision came down, losing the Medicaid work requirement, which was another blow this session, it became clear that there was an effort to get the Medicaid budget through the legislature as soon as possible, preferably before anyone realized what was happening. And I don't know the motives behind that. I don't know if they just were worried that without the work requirement they wouldn't have the vote, or they just didn't want the headache of having the legislators have any input. But we adjourned in an unusual way on that Tuesday to have a budget meeting where the Medicaid budget was pushed through. Then the Senate voted it out just minutes before the court decision came through, which, maybe it's a coincidence, but I don't really buy that. And then, of course, the House tried to get it through less than 48 hours after the court struck down the work requirement. And, we weren't in the House really told, what's the game plan going forward? How are we going to change course now that we've lost the work requirement? And I just went back and, it's my third session, and I wanted to know what were we told the last two sessions on this, on Medicaid, on the private option. And so I just went back and read some press releases and looked and saw the words mostly from the governor about Medicaid and the work requirement. And, it became clear that that's kind of how we were sold. It was, well, we're going to keep Obamacare, but we're going to make it more conservative. We're going to do all these reforms, and we're going to do the work requirement, and that's going to make this program sustainable over time. And then now we don't have the work requirement, but we're still being asked to maintain it. And it's become clear, really, there's just this game where, every 2 years we're given some new, PR, some new case for why we should continue Obamacare in Arkansas. And, earlier when my first two sessions, it was, well, we're going to go for these reforms. Let's wait for the waivers. We've got to wait for the Obama administration, wait for the Trump administration to give us these waivers. Please, let's just wait. Let's keep doing what we're doing, but let's wait. So we waited for the waivers. Now we don't have it. So now it's let's wait for the court case. Let's just wait and see what happens with the court case. And so every 2 years, we just kind of kick the can down the road. Let's hope this thing works out. And meanwhile, we've got 250,000, 300,000 people that we're paying $500 a month for. And ultimately, I think that's what matters to a lot of people, is that, the health insurance companies keep getting these billions and billions of dollars, and the people who are benefiting from that. Mm-hmm. And so I just felt like, we need to get organized. We need to stand up and at least say, I knew we probably wouldn't be able to hold the appropriation forever, but I knew, at least let's hear your plan. Let's hear what your idea is going forward now that we've lost the work requirement. And so we were at least able to get a few more days, and the governor came and spoke to us caucus, and, at least we as constitutional officers in the state of Arkansas were allowed to have some input, and we were allowed to present some Medicaid reforms like Josh Miller's bill.
Yes.
At least that got a vote before we got to vote on the appropriation again. So small win, but I will take it.
Yeah, it was a small win. I mean, your speech was just very a matter of fact. It wasn't. And I say this is a good thing. There wasn't emotion behind it. It wasn't an emotionally charged speech. It was a factual speech because you were using quotes. Now, one of the things, we're talking with State Representative Grant Hodges, one of the things you said from the House floor was you were talking about fiscal sustainability, meaning without the work requirement, it had been said many times, right, that we can't continue the program because we wouldn't be able to afford it. Is that right?
Yeah, and the funny thing to me is that I didn't feel like that was really right-wing nut job Grant Hodges saying that. I was quoting the budget chairman, in the House, who had said in the past that we cannot sustain the Medicaid program, and I was quoting the governor, Governor Hutchinson, who had said in the past that we cannot sustain the program without the work requirement. And so I'm just taking them at their word that unless something changes, we can't afford this. And I don't see any plan or any action to make serious changes so we can have a sustainable fiscal path going forward.
Well, they're obviously they're hoping that the higher court is going to reverse the lower court decision, and from what I'm told is that's likely to happen. So then the next question is, Grant, can we afford it? Is it sustainable with the work requirement? Because 4 years ago, the estimate was that this year we would be paying, I believe, $50 million in our share, but our share is actually $138 million this year. And I kind of feeling that the reason the people of Arkansas, like you said, you believe that they're going to be paying more money when it's all said and done after the 92nd General Assembly than before. I gotta think it's because we had to pay $138 million for able to work adults to have free health insurance.
Yep. I don't think I don't think we can afford it either way, and that's why I voted against it all 3 sessions that I've been in Little Rock, and that's what I told my voters I would do. So, with or without the Medicaid requirement, I don't think we can afford it, but certainly without the work requirement, I don't think we can afford it. So I hope that's how the case turns out. I hope we're able to implement the work requirements again, but I would also like to see that expanded because I think the work requirement we have is pretty weak. Yeah, no, I would agree with that too. Well, I really appreciate you spending some time with us, State Representative Grant Hodges. I appreciate your perspective. I appreciate your votes, especially on those 2 tax increases, the gas tax and the half-cent sales tax. And I just want to say thanks and look forward to talking to you again soon. Well, likewise, Paul. I'm always happy to come on, and thanks for hearing me out, and thank you to your listeners. Appreciate what you all do.
All righty. Have a great day.